Thank you all for being here. This is a very exciting initiative. Actually, Connect for Climate just joined the Momentum for Change initiative this year, and we're very proud to be a partner on it and very excited to showcase the solutions that you guys are implementing. It truly is a showcase of action on the ground and innovation to go beyond the old solutions and find the new ones so as to ramp up the ambition and make sure that we achieve the science targets that we need to. So this session is hosted under the Earth to Marrakesh Coalition in support of the SDG Media Zone. Thank you all for being here, making your time to be here. So I'm going to let you introduce yourselves one by one and also talk a little bit about your solution. And so I'm going to hand over initially straight to Leslie. So, yeah, straight over to you.
Hi, thank you, Max, and thank you for allowing us to be here to talk about our project, which is Darcy Hamed's Fog Water Harvesting Project. It is the largest fog water harvesting project in the world. It's here in southwest Morocco, and we work in rural Berber villages on the tail end of the Anti-Atlas Mountains, right on the edge of the Sahara Desert, where people in the communities are water stressed. There's only about 6 inches of rain that falls a year, and women spend 3 to 4 hours every day going to wells to haul contaminated, compromised water. Yet in this area, for 6 months of the year, there is what I like to call world-class fog. It rolls into the mountains, across the valleys, and our project is to harvest potable water from those fog banks and provide that water to rural Berber communities, about 500 community members now, but we're expanding, we're more than doubling the project over the next couple of years. So there's the innovation in the fog harvesting technology, but what we're doing is meeting a need on the ground for potable water in an area of the world where climate change is progressively devastating the water sources. So there's longer droughts, deeper droughts, and North Africa is really one of the most susceptible places in the world to climate change.
No, thank you very much, Leslie. I'm going to hand over now to Jeannette Gurung, who's going to tell us about the W+ standard from Nepal.
Thank you very much. It's also a great pleasure to be here. I'm the executive director of an organization called WOCAN, Women Organizing for Change in Agriculture and Natural Resource Management. We've been working in the fields of gender, women's empowerment, agriculture and natural resource management over the last 3 decades. And what we've seen again and again is that women's contributions to climate change, and women are critical to the solution of climate change, but what we've seen is that their roles and contributions are not acknowledged and not valued. So we created the W+ standard as a way that would allow us to see those contributions, to measure those contributions, to value those contributions, and in doing so also create a way for women's lives to be improved and for the projects that work on climate change to in fact pay attention to the benefits that could be provided to women as part of the project development. The creation of the W+ standard provides a framework and a channel for individuals, companies, investors, and donors to show their contribution to women and to be 100% confident that whatever they're doing in relation to climate change projects in fact does produce a benefit for women.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And I understand you're already reaching and supporting more than 7,000 women through the program. It's great work. Next up, it's Joel Conkling from the project Sunroofs from the US.
So I'm Joel Conkling. I work with Google on Project Sunroof. And what we see is that people are looking for a way to do something environmentally responsible and also looking for a way to save money on things that they spend money on. So solar power is one of those opportunities for a lot of people. And Project Sunroof helps people answer that question in a very customized way for that person's roof. So we've modeled the world in 3 dimensions, done very accurate solar calculations, energy estimates, and if someone enters their address, they can find out the answer about whether solar makes sense for them. We've currently mapped, used Google technology to map 43 million buildings in the US, and we're looking to continue expanding to help solar reach its potential in the US and eventually abroad as well.
And I believe you had a very accelerated uptake of the program. Over 8 months, you grew from, what, 2 states to all 48 states?
Yeah. Yeah, we launched in 3 cities in 2 states, and now we're in 43 states. Well, 42 states plus DC, and 43 million buildings, where we initially covered only about 1.5 million. So very rapid growth. Yeah.
We look forward to seeing it take off globally. So next up, I'm going to ask Lena Malm from the Gothenburg Green Bonds from Sweden to explain how you guys worked with green bonds to implement climate actions in your cities.
Hi, I'm Magnus, Borelius, Head of Treasury for City of Gothenburg, and our project is a green bond, and it's basically earmarked money for environmental friendly investments. And I think it's a fantastic example on how the Treasury Department and the Sustainability Department can work together, 2 very different disciplines and backgrounds. And we also see a huge interest from investors and financial benefits in that way. And we also think that it increases the credibility for our environmental program, since the investors also want to be public in what we are doing.
And can I maybe just ask, so how much have you managed to raise and fund through green bonds so far?
When we issued the first bond in 2013, we were the first city in the world to do it, and we were quite unsecure would there be any interest in the financial markets. So, but when we opened the books that morning, after 20 minutes, we had more than 2 times the amount that we wanted. We had to close the books because there was a huge demand, and that's how we've issued 4 so far. And we see the same pattern, and I would say that the interest is increasing. So for the moment, we have 10% of the city's outstanding debt is funded by green money, and that is we will see that will increase in the coming years.
Fantastic. And then I'd like to hand over to Supriya Prasannan from Malaysia, who will be telling us about connected mangroves.
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity. I represent Erickson Malaysia, and we actually started this as a very humble project. As our 50th year, we were giving back something to Malaysia. And so we thought, what can be something sustainable for the country? And so we went down and planted about 200 over plants in our first go. And what we found out is, out of all the plants that generally is planted at this particular village, only 30%, maybe 30% to 40% might survive it. And that really took us by a shock, because we all know the importance of the mangrove, the ecosystem that actually is going to be giving us the highest contribution of, taking off the carbon emission and storing it. So having said that, being a technology leader, Erickson has got this concept where we call the network society, and anything that can be connected will be connected and can benefit from it, we will do it. So being a thought leadership in the information, communication, technology world, what did we do? We actually came together with a NGO which actually runs this project, where they actually do the conservation. That's a Global Environmental Center. They, together with the community, they taught the community not just the awareness of you have to take care of your mangroves, but they also actually brought in the element of sustainability into them. And so it's only possible if we bring real-time information into their hands. And what we did is we partnered up with Lumiva, which is a technology partner which has sensors. And what are the sensors? We monitor the soil, we monitor the water levels, we monitor the humidity, the temperature. So basically, we started in a small group. We decided to say, let the mangroves talk to us. And so we started getting, and we also actually installed a video cam. Now, out of this, what had happened in 6 months, I give it a short one, is basically we started having good insights of what is happening on the plot that we planted. And two fundamental things that came up was, one, there were visitors. There were monkeys, families of monkeys actually on the ground. So they were going on and actually destroying the plants. So we had to take mitigation action, which we worked with the NGO and we found out that you could put a different variety which is much more sustainable, and the monkeys don't like them. Okay, so we found one. The second thing is we found there was a lot of rubbish which was actually choking the plant. Now, these were by the cameras itself, right? So these were just two immediate things where we actually found out and we started taking action. But there are many more things now that in the month of March was a drought, and we call it a dry season in Malaysia. So alarms will come onto the gadgets of the respective NGO or the community head or even the authorities, the government authorities, to tell them mitigation action needs to be taken. So what Erickson has done back to the community and in general to the climate is we have brought technology, enabled technology for good, so that whatever projects that we do, there is a way for us to sustain it. Yeah, and if there's anything that each one of us can do is go plant a plant, and the technology part of it together with partners, we would do.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So it's almost like whispering trees, so
Yeah.
they're talking back to you.
Yes, it's good to know.
No, that's great. So I mean, as you can see, these are really amazing solutions from every corner of the world on every sphere, from building resilience to women empowerment to mitigating the impacts of climate change. So I'd like to delve a little bit deeper into each one of your solutions in this round. So Leslie, if you could actually explain what fog harvesting actually means and how it works, and how you then actually use the harvested water and distribute it to the communities.
So fog harvesting has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. So what we're doing is almost a biomimicry. We're mimicking what already occurs naturally in nature. So what we do is we have installed 600 square meters of what I'm going to call first generation nets. And these are single ply nets with a loose weave. And those are erected on the top of Mount Bukit which is the tail end of the Anti-Atlas Mountains. And what we have 6 months of the year is an advantageous water current off of the Atlantic Ocean and an advantageous some wind currents that pull this moist air up off of the Atlantic, and it blows on shore. And then it blows on shore about 30 kilometers in, and it bumps up against the tail end of the Anti-Atlas Mountains. So it's really a mechanical barrier. And when that moist column of air hits the mountains, it has nowhere to go but up. And because there's a wind cap, a wind current that caps that moist air, doesn't dissipate, 6 months of the year it's capped. So that moist air hits the mountain and it just it basically thunders with fog. It creates world-class fog that then is blowing across the nets. So it's a passive system. Blows across the nets that we have, and then we have we collect it and runs into gutters, and then we have a UV, a hybrid solar and conventional electricity filtration station up at the top of the mountain, particulate and UV, and then there's 8 kilometers of pipes downslope, and this is very tough countryside. Granite, dry, scrap. You can't get machines to basically carve the troughs you need for the pipes. So there's 8 kilometers of pipe downslope, and then we have secondary and tertiary piping to every home, every inhabited home in 5 villages. And then just very quickly, because this is a really exciting time for the project, is that we are in this kind of this revolutionary change in fog harvesting, in that our site is both a community-led development site, but it's also a research-led project. So we have been working with meteorologists, ecoclimatologists, and engineers, and one of those engineers has, because we had some problems with the wind blowing out the nets, ripping the nets, then you're losing water, a German engineer, a partner, he's reconceived of fog nets, and he has created a new net that has is almost like a net sandwich. Think of it as an ice cream sandwich. Has a hard plastic grid or a semi-rigid plastic grid, keeps the nets from blowing out, and then it has this mesh, a honeycomb mesh, on the surface of the net, so the surface area is increased. So now we can collect, depending on the fog event, perhaps up to 40% more water. So this is a moment where fog harvesting technology has gone from this sort of passive single ply to the new higher tech, high efficiency nets.
And I think that's a great example of innovation right there. And that's the kind of innovation we want to see with all our climate solutions as we go forward. So over to you, Jeannette. Could you maybe just explain a little bit about the process of actually certifying projects and you know, what are the criteria that you use to assess whether a project is of benefit to women and how it then gets the W+ label?
Yes, okay, thank you. We started with women's empowerment, and we said, what defines women's empowerment? And we had consultations with a group of women in the mountains in the rural areas of Nepal and also Western Kenya. And much to our surprise, I think they came to the same six domains we call. And they said time, health, food security, income and assets, education and knowledge, and leadership. And so we said, okay, those are the major categories we will use. We have developed methods around each one of those categories that combine both qualitative and quantitative data to come up with a unit that gives an indication of the result. So we were very much inspired by a carbon market way of measuring impact. So we have a baseline, and we take the baseline, and it could be a carbon-related project, could be a food security project, could be a community development, could be a fog harvesting project, right? Absolutely, we'll talk. And we do the baseline, and then we measure the results after some specified time in at least one of those categories. It doesn't need to be more than one, but you would have health, you would have food security, you would have many other things. And then we're able to quantify, produce the units, and then it's independently verified. And after the verification, we have units that we are then able to sell on the market. And so your next question is going to, who's going to buy these units, right? Well, we're really trying to create a market, a new market for social capital. This is not easy. The project that we won the award for was the application of this to a biogas project in Nepal. Biogas project was it was done for the purpose of carbon emissions units, and at the same time, they were in fact delivering benefits to women who no longer had to cut forest and had 100% energy substitution from fuel wood to this very clean energy source. But nobody was looking at that. Nobody was thinking about how this benefited women. So that carbon project produced benefits to women that we could then quantify. So we measured time saved. Time is the fundamental and first thing that needs to happen in order for women's empowerment to occur in developing economies where women are working 20 hours a day, such as they are in Nepal. So we measured 2.2 hours per day time saved for every woman, for every household throughout the year. So now what becomes interesting is what do they do with that time? And the women, when we questioned them, they said, we want to learn new technologies for food security. We want to help our children with education. We want to assume a stronger leadership role in the community. All the right things, right? I wish they had just said, I want to take a nap, but that didn't actually happen, which would have been wonderful as well. So what happened then, we sold those units, and then we returned a large percentage of the revenue to the women's groups involved in that project, because our belief is that women's groups found throughout the world are really the answer and the solution to things like climate change, food security, and poverty, but they are hugely under-resourced and under-financed. So the story we have to tell is the transfer of this money to these women's groups, and they then can use that money in whatever way they choose to do so.
Fantastic. And as we see the investor landscape change and more awareness coming into, you know, investing into companies and projects that are socially aware and also low carbon, this is the kind of work that we really need. So over to Gothenburg, Lena, if you could maybe just lay out some of the real success projects that came out of the green climate bonds, like the ones that really stood out and really hit you personally very much and that you feel very proud of.
I think for the city, the project stands out is, for example, the biogas production. But what I think is the best part of it is we as a city, we have a very large company group that we own. We have everything from the largest port in Scandinavia, and we have our own amusement park and so on. And that is when you issue the bond, you have the opportunity to finance a wide variety of projects. Say we have tree planting, for example, in the bonds, that would have been impossible to issue a bond for tree planting for just a couple of millions. But when you take all these kinds of variety projects like electric cars, tree planting, or a water purification filter for a couple of $100 million, you have the opportunity to take them together in one big bond. And I think that's where the success is, that you can sort of pool all your projects. Instead of having a lot of small projects, which is impossible to use that kind of funding, here you can pool them together and make it to one bigger bond, and then access the market and then access that kind of capital that wants to invest in these green investments. So we have a variety of projects, and there's not anyone that's standing out in that way. We have a lot of large projects, like you say, the biogas production in that way, that is a success. But I would say that it's the concept in that way, the opportunities that you have to pool all the projects together.
No, absolutely fantastic. And looking forward, what are your plans? Where do you stand in terms of your current targets for Gothenburg, and what are you aiming to achieve?
With the green bonds, I think it was when we started this, it was a standalone project from the Treasury Department. But now it has grown in that way that the investment decisions and so on that we take, the green fund is sort of a parameter where you have to choose. You see, you have to fulfill all this fulfillment from the city's environmental program. And our target is to fund as much as we can from this kind of green finance. And there must always be a financial need that starts it. You can't just go to the bond market and say, hey, we want to issue more green bonds, because you have to have the needs. But at the moment, that is actually the case, because the demand from the market is so huge in that way. So there won't be no problem to fund 100%, but you need to have the need for the money as well in that way. So I think that will increase year by year here, the money that we fund. And I think also that we see is one of the great advantages is that the Treasury and the sustainability colleagues has to work together. Because the Treasury has a tendency, or finance people in general has a tendency to believe that they are the center of the universe. They can solve everything. So when you issue an ordinary bond, it's just the dividend and the money back that the investor cares about. But when you have the green bonds, the investors want to know where the money is going. And that can't the Treasury Department answer. They have to start working together with the sustainability colleagues. And when these two groups start to work together, they run really fast, because they're really addicted to what they're doing in that way. But they're not competing with each other. So they really want to make a success out of it. So I think that's one of the greatest benefits that we have seen.
Fantastic. And so over to Google. Could you maybe just explain exactly how you do the solar rooftop mapping on the technical side? And then also give us a little bit of an insight of where you're aiming to go with the program. Like, are you aiming to go global? What's the next step?
Thank you. So the technology is based on something that started in Google Maps and Google Earth about 4 or 5 years ago. They decided they wanted to build a 3D sort of version of maps, and they started to take images from airplanes, and those images can be turned into a 3D map of the world. And then a couple years later, we started to think about what can we do with that in the solar industry. And it turns out that you can pick a point on a roof and look up at the sun for each time of day throughout the course of a year, and add up all the times it's shaded, add up all the times it's not shaded, sunny. And then you do that for each point on the roof, and you have the number for the roof, overlay weather, overlay things like utility electricity prices, the prices of solar, solar incentives and regulations, and you can combine all that into a really sort of succinct, customized answer for whether solar makes financial sense and how much energy could be produced by putting solar on your roof. So that's sort of the underlying technology, and we've done that now for the 43 million buildings that we mapped in the U.S., and we can look to continue expanding in the U.S. as well. The other thing we've been doing is listening very carefully to the feedback we've gotten from stakeholders across the solar industry, from city leaders and state leaders to solar companies to individuals, listening for their feedback and what kinds of features and additions would they like to see based on this data set that Google has and that Project Sunroof's developed on top of that. We're really excited about this feature that we released about 2 weeks ago that we call the Data Explorer, which, whereas Sunroof's sort of initial release was focused on the potential of one house, now you can go and put in a city or a state and see what's the potential for that entire state. And so that starts to inform what are the policies that should be in place, how do you implement those policies in a really effective way to maximize the potential of solar power. So that's one direction we're going. We remain interested in expanding internationally, and I think we have data that would allow us to do that in about 30 or 40 countries, but no specific plans on timing yet. We have a relatively small team and a lot of goals that we're trying to reach, including this Data Explorer that we've just announced recently as well. So more to come, but no specific plans for international expansion.
And just quickly, on the new states that you brought aboard, was it relatively easy to roll out the technology? Was there quite a lot of interest and uptake, or did you face a few challenges along the way? Yeah, so the main piece of feedback we get from our general users when they leave us notes after coming to the site is, when are you going to come to my area? We've gotten hundreds and hundreds of people asking us this question. So there has been a lot of really strong interest in moving out to new states. And as we moved from the initial 3 cities in 2 states to now 42 states plus Washington, D.C., we've seen really strong uptake among users in those states and really positive responses about the power of big data, the power of solar, and combining those two. And I think it also it points the way to the value of big data in climate in general. What other ways can machine learning be applied? What other ways can big data be applied to help solve the problems that we're facing around climate, both measurement and implementing solutions as well. So. No, fantastic. Supriya, so we know that growing mangroves is fundamental to helping, curb sea level rise as well as build resilience for communities. So now, you've run a pilot, right? So I was just wondering, and it's in a relatively protected area. Yeah. So I was wondering, do you have plans of getting out of the protected area and also working maybe on coastal areas along cities? And what challenge do you envision for that kind of a work?
Okay, basically, yes, we started this humble project as our pilot project. And in 1 year, it's very heartwarming to say that what was a survival rate of about 30 to 40% has come to 80% today. So to us, that is one thing. The other thing is you actually see that there is more life now. Marine life has suddenly sprouted. We had very little crabs in that area. And that has sprouted like nobody's business in the last visit. So it gave us a lot of, encouragement to do more. And this is just in the area that we're talking about, Kampung Dato Hormat. But in all honesty, actually, we already have embarked into a bigger project. We were actually invited by a state ruler in our country to come up and tell him what it's all about, what is this connected mangrove all about, because he actually has this huge wetlands, about easily 2,000 over hectares, which he wants to conserve. And together with that, he also wants to have an environment where the community that he has there, the fishermen, the farmers, all these people stay within that particular wetlands and not go off to the, town and start working. So we actually have done some programs for it, and it has actually come to a point where we signed an MOU with his foundation and the state, and so that is actually going to be rolled out as a program with them and various partners, because we're going to have a few of the sustainability goals covered under that, which is really not just the climate change, 13, actually life below water, 14, live on land, because they're going to actually try and look into agriculture. So there are many things that this is going to take us to, and we will actually use different partners based on the solution, and we have actually been working for that. And this is just the start. It can be agriculture, it can be fisheries, it can be ecotourism. These are the few things that we are talking about. And of course, mitigating forest fires, because we have a big haze issue in our country. So all these are the areas that we can move forward to. To your question about challenge, well, I guess it's getting in more buy-in. Like this interest came from the state. Now we're starting to see that the forestry department is looking at how the solution can help them. If more agencies and government bodies can actually jump into it, and maybe even corporate bodies, if we can actually hold hands together, I think we can make a lot of difference in whatever we want to step into. Yeah?
Absolutely. No, thank you very much. And I really like that point that you made, that climate action actually touches upon so many of the SDGs, and it's really two sides of the same coin at the end of the day. And I think we should really congratulate Momentum for Change for identifying all your solutions and the innovation that you guys are promoting. We're very proud to be part of that, and coming from the World Bank, it's really inspiring to hear all these solutions taking place on the ground, because from our perspective, we will never end poverty if we don't stop climate change, and if we don't manage the impacts of climate change. So now that you've heard each other's stories, I was wondering whether you'd like to give a little bit of feedback to each other on whether you're inspired by your stories.
Actually, everything is inspiring.
You must have been reading my mind. I would like to highlight what Jeannette was saying about, and ask you a question about, monetizing or first valuing women's contributions. And I teach humanitarian engineering, so a lot of what I am trying to do is to elevate these issues of equity and equality, the different experiences of men and women. And it's a slog. It's difficult. And I don't know yet that we have incorporated the importance of women's efforts in the area where we work. We calculate women hours saved by women who no longer have to spend 3 to 4 hours a day going to the well. But how do you get people to pay for that? Who's inspired to pay, and how can we help you do what you do so that we have more people who want, women bonds, or to invest in women through what are more sort of traditional financial mechanisms that maybe have never been applied to women?
Do you want me to answer? I swear I did not give her this question. But I cannot think of a better one, Leslie. It's absolutely fantastic. And of course, I'll turn to you next to see what green bonds can do. Again, we're seeing investors who want to have this social impact. And we hear that what they're missing is the metrics. They're missing the metrics that allows them the confidence that you spoke of, where they know that they're not getting pink washed, as we say, right? Not just checking a box to say, yes, we had a few women benefit from this, but this was really serious. We're measuring results. We're not measuring inputs and outputs. We have come up with a new product, I think, that's going to help build this market, which is we are very soon going to be able to announce the way that carbon offset buyers can also do so in a way that benefits women. So we are linking the W plus standard with some of the carbon standards to make it very easy for offset buyers to do both things at the same time. So there will be a little bit extra of the payment of the unit that can hopefully fuel this market. We listened, but there was a gender decision yesterday here. We know now that everybody is going to have to include gender throughout all aspects of climate change mitigation adaptation. I think our time has come. So we'll talk, and we'll talk. But I would like to throw this down the line and to see, within the green bonds, is there any way you could think of incorporating a social impact that has a solid metric system that can be quantified and produced in units for your investors?
You mean the impact reporting from the green bond in that way?
De-risk your investments.
Yeah, you can de-risk your investments in that way as an, I think as in, from an investor point of view, yes, if you see that the climate change is a sort of a threat for you. If you think so, yeah, you de-risk because there you're moving in the right direction. But as an issuer from where I come from, you see also that there is an increase a decrease in the risk because you get we have widened our investor base in that way, that more people want to invest in the city. I mean, you have the huge asset managers, pension funds and so on, but we also have calls from citizens that want to be a part of a development. And the most faraway call we have had is actually from a shop owner in South Africa that called us that he wants to invest in this, what you call a green bond. Can I do that? Unfortunately, you can't do that because we are selling to institutions for the moment. But so the financial industry are starting to develop this kind of products for the private market in that way. So I think there, and a bond, a green bond or an ordinary bond, it doesn't really matter. You can have whatever amendment you want to the bond. As long as you agree, you can have a social bond, you can have a women's bond or whatever you say, as long as there's a market for it, that you have investors that want to buy it and you can sort of prove that you're doing what you said you've done, because this is much a confident product for the moment. There's no state regulation or anything like that. This is an agreement between the investors, the issuers, and everyone else for the moment. So,
do you have a question for Joel?
I have a question for Leslie, right?
Okay, there we go.
It sounds like you've made some great advances in the technology of fog harvesting, and also that you're validating the model for working with communities, and I'm wondering where it goes next.
So where does the project go next? There are two tranches. One is the continuation of the research. So there's meteorological research, the climate research, the material science, and the social science that we're doing. So what we're trying to do is to be a research zone so that people who are interested in alternative solutions to water scarcity, in our case it's fog, have a place where they can come and push the envelope so that they can try new materials, so they can try new data gathering methods, so we can link the micro data that we have to the climate models. So there's a lot of gaps, research gaps. So we're available to that, but we can't do all of that. We don't have that expertise. Now at the community level, we're doing the social science and the longitudinal research, so we're looking to see and really track the transformations in the community. Are the communities stabilizing? Are people coming back, right? Is there a reversal of that exodus? So that when you have people coming back to their homelands, they come back with a cultural commitment, but there has to be opportunity. So water represents opportunity for women, for families, agricultural opportunity. So we're working now by providing potable water and freeing up women's times. That's created a gap, but a gap in the best way, right? So a gap in which then you can develop new programming. So we have programming that is water school, which is early environmental education, and STEM, or STEAM, because I like to add the arts in there, STEAM education for little kids, teenagers. Women are coming to these classes and they're looking through a microscope and looking at the compromised water and the fog water. So there's some science and environmental education. And then there's WASH training, because there are new water behaviors. With new water come new behaviors. And there's different water use patterns. So with the project, the water's been turned on for about 16 months. So we're in there with programming, women's capacity building, water school. We have environmental youth ambassadors, the guys in the green shirts right there. They work in the countryside as well. So we continue to develop projects that are either health and literacy. I work in ICTD, so I work with women using their mobile phones to learn their letters and their numbers, because they're never going back to they've never been to school, or they're never going to school. But they're interested in literacy. They're interested in technological literacy, so they can stay in touch with their families. So we teach numeracy and literacy using the mobile phone. So you got to get creative and listen to the community. What what do they want, what do they need, and then what can we bring as partners? It's like, oh, well, you want literacy and numeracy? You've got a phone, so we can do this. We can do this together. And it's not so top-down, but some of it is top-down. But it's that lovely meeting of the top-down and the bottom-up right there in the middle in that water channel.
Thank you, Leslie. So I think we're running out of time. I just want to really, really thank you and highlight that from the program that I'm working on, Connect for Climate, we're a program that aims to communicate these amazing solutions that people are working on, and we rely on you and all our partners to actually, deliver the knowledge and show us the actions, and we just get really inspired by hearing your stories. We really enjoy the linkages with the youth, with the creativity, with the technology, with ITC, with smart finance, with innovative and new ways of doing the activities that we so desperately need. So today we presented some of the highlights coming out of the Momentum for Change initiative of the UNFCCC. Tomorrow we're going to be celebrating all of you at the award ceremony. We're looking very much forward to that. It's really the flagship or one of the flagships of the UNFCCC's process. It's probably one of the most exciting nights here. So we're happy to have you here. So we've heard from Leslie Dodson on women-led fog harvesting here in Morocco. We've heard from Jeannette Gurung on the W stand in Nepal. We've heard from Lena Maum about the Gothenburg Green Bonds. We've heard from Joel Conkling about the project Sunroof in the US. And we've heard from Supriya Prasannan about connected mangroves. Thank you so very much for being here and making the time to be with us.